Yo, Maha peoples, what's up? Welcome to another 5 points review in the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I break down everything you need to know about a game into 5 key points. Normally, I would do a 5 and 9 review, where I give you my 5 points in around 9 minutes, but I got a lot to say about this one, in a good way. Today we're taking a look at Earthborne Rangers. This is a debut title from Earthborne Games. It is a card game for wonderful players, a huge sprawling adventure in which you're playing a ranger in a post-apocalyptic land, but humanity has gotten together and they're trying to regrow what was lost and deal with the challenges therein. So the best way to advertise this game is to show you the map. These are all of the locations, and throughout the course of the game, you'll be able to visit any or all of these locations. There are a ton of them. Unique adventure awaits, side quests, no rush either. It's not like there's this big looming threat, but there are challenges and mysteries to explore. That's Earthborne Rangers. We have a lot of story-based adventures. We cover them often in the One Stop Co-op Shop. How does Earthborne Rangers compare to all those games? Let's go to the videotape and find out. And then I'm going to come back. I have some extended thoughts about how the story plays out in this one. Disclaimer, the One Stop Co-op Shop was provided a review copy of this game by the publisher. My number 5, which is a mix, is the onboarding system. So here is the base game with all those cards. You spend a fair bit of time organizing everything. Definitely more than you would get in an LCG like a Marvel Champions or an Arkham. For some people, that could be very exciting, but if you're a newer player just exploring the system, it might be a little bit overwhelming. And then you get to laying the game out. It does not take long in your campaign for that board to look like this and for it to feel quite overwhelming. I say this is a mix because in board gaming in general, with these story-based adventures, which I've played a ton of them at this point, some here on the channel, tend to be lighter rule sets so people can get in and enjoy the story. Not here. The complexity level here is Magic the Gathering or an Android Netrunner. I'm flagging that for folks just in case there is the audience that wants to lean more towards the story end. Unless you're familiar with that kind of card play, you might have a struggle getting into this. In addition, here is the campaign book. It has a prologue, which will introduce people to the system. I actually think this is actively bad. There is a rule that is introduced in the prologue to make it work that does not apply anywhere else in the game relative to fatiguing your deck. When you have to introduce a new rule to teach people the game, then they have to forget it. Might want to go in a different direction with that. My number 4, a fairly huge pro, is the character creation in general and the deck building in particular. So at the end of it, you're going to end up with a 30-card deck along with your character. Comprising that deck, you're going to pick from your basic personality, some cards from here, then your background, how you became the person that you are, and your current specialization, your role within the Rangers today. You can mix and match cards from there. I also have a lot of options because I got the card doubler for higher player count. So I have a lot of options. Do I want a high device character? Do I want a lot of followers? Do I want to talk and converse? Do I want to build more for combat? And everything comes out in the mechanisms. It's totally well done. And along the way, here are the rewards. There are a ton of possible rewards to mix into your deck. It'll feel very different at the end than it did at the beginning. So everything about the deck building, really well done. My number 3, a pro overall, is the system of obstacles, challenges that you have to overcome. I didn't say enemies because for the most part, this game doesn't present enemies. It presents a world with which you interact, and sometimes the interactions are difficult. That's not the same as enemies. It's not like you go and then the board attacks you, back and forth seesaw. It's much more organic and lived in than that. 2 different things. First of all, the board responds not in its own phase to things that you do. So then the player is going to do a test, and then they're going to pull from the challenge deck as a randomizer. And then whatever the band is that shows up, there's 3 different colors of bands, different things will happen. That's really cool in solo because you can take a look at the board, see what change are likely to happen, and that affects your strat. That way, it's awesome. At a higher player count, especially at 4, there's a lot of cards out there. Everyone's doing tests, and it just takes a long time for all that to work through. So it kind of approaches a con at higher player count, in my opinion, but in solo, it's perfect. The second, perhaps most important thing about this aspect of the game is the way that the environment cards interact amongst themselves. So if you have predators and you get a blue, they're going to go after the prey. Or you have a warthog, they're sniffing around, you have some trail mix out and it's bothering you, maybe put away your trail mix and have it go after the other environment aspect instead. Or maybe you have like a huge monster, you got some predators, arrange things so that the predators attack the big monster and not you. There are so many permutations of card interaction where you can demonstrate your cleverness, find ways to solve problems that are not just walking with your club. I'm about 20 days into my own campaign and I'm still finding more really, really well done. My number 2, a pro overall, are you sensing a theme yet? Is the basic player side card play. So you begin the day with your deck of cards and your hand of cards. So then the game will always start pretty placid, only a couple things out there. It wants to give you that time to start to use your resources and lay out your combos. This is not a game where you're fighting your own deck. Like a Magic the Gathering, as an example, it's like, oh, can I get my combo going? And am I going to draw the right card, etc.? Here, it's like, no, you have plenty of time. Draw your combos, play it out. It's a 30-card deck. You have 2 copies of each card, so it's not going to take you long to get your main engine going. So what is the challenge? The challenge is longevity. You have to go through multiple days. You have to complete many, many tests in order to explore the environment. So it's like, okay, get your combos, now see how long you can last. That is a satisfying challenge. In addition, you will run into stronger creatures that will challenge you. Even if you have your full layout, you have to be clever, use the environment and other resources in order to overcome. So even though they give you room to kind of get your thing going pretty early, they challenge you. And in addition, once again, when you get those upgrades, the combos will shift. You'll play your deck differently. There's so much to love here in the basic card play. To talk about my number 1, I'm going to zoom back from the table and just face the camera and talk to y'all. So it is a pro. So clearly I like this game. There's a long line of pros here. But I have some things to say about the story, the open world nature of Earthborne Rangers, as well as how this game prioritizes rewarding curiosity. So there are a ton of story-based games, games that, you do your thing, and then there's an associated book. You come into an element that has a number or a symbol or something, and then you go into the book, you read, and then that fills in the story of whatever the game is doing. So many games, and I'm thinking of Arkham LCG in particular. They kind of rush you through it. There's a crisis, and if you're interacting with the element that it has to directly involve solving that crisis or getting a personal power up or etc., there is no time to just explore the world and be curious about it. Also, a game like Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle Earth, it's Lord of the Rings, it's Middle Earth. I want to explore stuff, and especially as you get into some of the other adventures, there's so much cool things to explore, and yet because of the crisis nature, it's almost like a punishment to go in aside and explore something because you're ignoring whatever the threat is. And there's other games, I'm thinking of in particular a game like Etherfields from Awakened Realms, where you're almost like punished as a, learn to play type mode. So it's like, let's say I'm investigating something and I follow the number, and then it says, oh, why are you investigating this number? What about that clue back there? You should have investigated that instead of this. Wrong. You reset and you get some terrible effect and, going on. Your curiosity is punished in this and so many of the other games. And if punishment's a strong word, then definitely not rewarded. Earthborne Rangers changes the paradigm on that profoundly, where so many games grab your attention because of a crisis. Earthborne Rangers wants to swing that pendulum all the way on the other side of the story track and entice you by presenting things that make you curious. There are so many different elements that are there that have that number on them, and they could be anything. So the example I like to give is a dying bear, right? This is not a story spoiler. I don't know if there's dying bears in the story, but as an example, right? So Earthborne Rangers will do something like, okay, you open a path and then a card will flip. It's like, oh, you see a dying bear and it has a number on it. So the game is inviting you. Okay, do you want to investigate this thing? And then given the overall motif of the game, a lot of things could happen. Maybe there's somebody behind it tending it to it. Maybe the bear has, some kind of illness that's a, harbinger of things going to happen in the valley. There's so many little story paths that can branch out, and the game kind of educates you along that way. That dying bear in some of the other games, that's not going to happen. Like the only way you're going to be interested is if it has like a sacrificial dagger plunged into its heart. And then even then it's like, okay, I don't care about the bear. I'm going to take that dagger and get it. Now I have a +2 dagger or whatever. Or if it's a game that punishes that curiosity, it's like, well, you should have noticed that hilt has a triangle and not a square. So you lost, 10 minutes of time and blah, blah, blah. In Earthborne Rangers, you are encouraged to check on the dying bear. So I'm going through all this because I want to help people understand that's what you're getting into. And you have to ask yourself, are you naturally curious about a situation like the dying bear? Are you curious about different people that you're going to encounter along the paths and the villages and what they have to say? Are you inspired by just a hint of an animal that you have never seen before in the distance, or some kind of structure from a previous age? And you're working on something, but it's like, okay, I'm going to walk over here and check that out. This game gives you that opportunity. So I struggle with that. For the most part, I like it. So it's definitely a pro. But sometimes I ask myself after like my 5th investigation of a koi pond or something, am I really curious about this? Am I going to get the payoff here? And so that goes to payoffs. So most of the time you're going to pull from that reward deck, or, some other little story element's going to happen. I don't know that the world like completely and utterly changes along with you. It does change. And the tenor of the story changes. That's all story spoiler. I'm not going to say any of that. I guess I'm bringing it up because I don't want to get people's expectations up that this game's going to like change all around you and do like a Baldur's Gate 3 thing where, something happens to your character and, all of a sudden the whole world changes. It's a card game. So there's only so much that the world can kind of change around you. And you're going to encounter times where following the different paths, I kind of got a little bit bored with it. It's like, okay, let me go back to the main mission. Having said all that, I am going to land on pro for a couple of reasons. Number one, there were enough of those side paths that gave me some kind of reward that changed things, either improved my deck or I got like a talisman or a badge or something that affected the interaction that I had somewhere along the way. I love when stuff like that happens. Number two, it is such a different paradigm than feeling so rushed. I reviewed many of these games, and that was my core criticism, was that I felt rushed, especially in a game like Lord of the Rings, Journeys to Middle-earth. Here, swing. And even if I felt like the game was kind of aggressively chill, where other games are aggressively kind of crisis oriented, I know it's hard to get that pendulum right. And I appreciate that the game makers here went for it. They went for a chill game, reward curiosity. And for the most part, I think it works. And so I can recommend Earthborne Rangers in a couple of situations. One, if you like that core combo-based card play, like in a Magic the Gathering, this game really does deliver that. Also, if you are appealed by that sense of open-ended adventure, rewarding curiosity, enticing you, as opposed to pushing you, forcing you with Crisis, that's kind of sums up what I experienced out of Earthborne Rangers. On the other hand, if you are a person that enjoys story-based games but want that easier entry, this one might be a little bit difficult. In addition, this one might swing towards that aggressively chill paradigm. I love that term. And you might be missing more of that world-spanning threat. And I really want to be clear. It's not like it doesn't have it. It's not, you're not just, looking at butterflies all day. There is an unfolding mystery. The story goes in excellent directions, but it might take you a while to get there. So if you want that immediate punch, then Earthborne Rangers might also present a little bit of difficulty. But if you like what I talked about, then in terms of what it presents, it's so unique and it's going to be in my collection. I'm playing through a 20-day adventure and I've still got lots to explore. So I'm going to keep going. It is my sincere hope that I've presented enough of the game so that I can help you make a decision for your gaming table. This is Jason with the One Stop Co-op Shop, reminding you that we'll see you at the next stop.